Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, since we're done with console wars, we're going to do a tier list. We haven't done a tier list in a little while, and I find them to be very, very fun.
It's where we just take off our history shirts, and do this. I don't know why it said shirts. I should have just said
We're going to
hats.
do this completely shirtless.
Completely
It's
shirtless.
a good thing this is not a video podcast.
I should have said hats. Yeah, that would have been weird. Yeah, so today we're going to do a tier list of first-person shooter franchises. Now, here's the rub that we discovered when planning this out, and that is that all of these are good, right? In fairness, they're all good. So we have eliminated F tier, because F tier in these tier lists means it's a bad game. So when we put something as D tier, that means it's definitely not doing well right now, but we want it to be good. Does that make? I think we can come to consensus on that.
I think that makes sense, and also like the reason we don't want to put things in an F tier is because we don't want to talk about games that are bad. They just let them be bad, let them die. We don't need to rehash old bad things. Let's talk about good things, stuff that we liked playing.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, if stuff's bad, the chances of us having played it are pretty low.
That's true. We have great taste in games.
We do. We are like the sommeliers of first-person shooters, Tyler and I.
That's right.
Yes,
you could
nice
get a degree
Halo
in
vintage.
that, probably. This is from 2010, I believe.
So we're going to get started here. And I think we should start with the gigantic juggernaut elephant in the room, and that is Call of Duty.
Okay. Call of Duty. Started in 2002 with the first Call of Duty, right? That was a great game. So I know you said we're taking off our history shirts, but I'm going to put on my history tank top, mostly because I don't want to do this
That's okay.
shirtless,
That's okay. I'll allow it.
But I want to talk a little bit about history of these games where we can, because Call of Duty it's old now. It's 20 years old now.
That's
it started in 2002.
About.
Yeah, and I remember I played the first game like when it was new. Like I had a lot of fun playing it when it was the hot thing around. So yeah, the first in the series was really good. The second one is one of the first game. I don't want to say first games, but it is a game, like a core memory game for me, where I played on my PC setup with my headphones in, and that is the game is the reason why I play single player first person shooters on my PC with my headphones on, because of the great experience I had playing Call of Duty 2 with like the sound effects and just how like really epic everything was. So I have a soft spot for Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty 4. Modern Warfare, of course, is a classic. And I played a lot of those games a couple of years ago. I got to World at War, I guess. Well, I played the whole Modern Warfare series, old Modern Warfare series. So
yeah, you were doing some work on those games. I remember this.
I burned out though, and I haven't played them in a couple of years, so I need to kind of get back to it. I need to go back to World at War because I was playing the Modern Warfare series. And then I didn't play any of the Black Ops games that were in between. I just played through Modern Warfare, and now I'm going back to World at War, which is technically the first in the Black Ops series. It's like vaguely related, or maybe it's just zombies is vaguely related. I don't know. And then I'm going to play all the Black Ops games, and then I want to get to current day, but I got to get back to it. I even played the console ones. I played Finest Hour, which was a fun console game. I played Big Red 1, which was fun, and Call of Duty 3, which was just more Call of Duty 2.
Dude, I'm looking here. There are 36 titles across all platforms for Call of Duty.
36 Call of Duty titles.
36
Wow.
Call of Duty games, which is what makes it hard for us to say where does this lie in the tier list. But here's my argument. This is a C tier franchise. Now, before people start taking off their headphones or turning over and pulling over their cars to send us angry emails, this is why I think it's C tier. I think it's C tier because this is what I look at when I think of the baseline for a first-person shooter now. That's what Call of Duty's done. It's made the genre the line. And I'm saying that because some Call of Duty games, really good. For example, Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2, the first instances of that, even though I played the first new one, but not the second new one.
Yeah,
it just
same.
came out.
I really enjoyed it. I thought the first new one was good. I haven't played the second one yet, though.
Me too. But there's also some duds, like Advanced Warfare was just bad, in my opinion. And there's also, people really hate on Call of Duty Ghosts as well as being a bad game. So I think that makes this C tier.
C tier. Okay.
So I want to put Call of Duty in the C tier for being average.
Because it started strong. We have a lot of great memories with it, but more recently it has not. Is that
my summary of it? Yes, is that it started out good. We're all chasing the hype of our childhoods with it. You know, I was in college when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2 were really hitting it, and Black Ops 1, and those were some of the best times. I'm not gonna lie, the some of the best times, but that wasn't there now.
Yeah. I think the last time I really got into and had a lot of fun with a Call of Duty, like and played it because like I was playing them a couple of years ago and they were fun, but I was just doing it sort of to do it. The last time I got into one and cared was Modern Warfare 2, the original, which was a really long time ago.
The single players were so fun in those games. They were really good. I mean, people still talk about the no Russia level, whatever your feelings are on it, or in the first Modern Warfare dying because of a nuclear explosion. Like, that's pretty cool. That's something that never happened in a game.
Yeah. I did really enjoy the latest, not the latest World War II one, but the Call of Duty World War II from 2017. I guess it's pretty old now. I did like the campaign for that one, even though it was back to World War II. I felt like they had fun characters. They like focused on the people in the game rather than like telling the story of World War II, which we've all heard a million times. Even if you've only played Call of Duty, you've heard that story a million times.
And that really did it for me, 100%. All right, so I feel like we've adequately summed up Call of Duty. I feel like we're good in that front. So how about you pick the next one? Because I picked Call of Duty, so you pick the next one. Where do you want to go?
Okay. All right, I'm going to pick Unreal. But actually, I'm going to amend that to Unreal Tournament.
Tournament.
Because I haven't really played. I played some of the original Unreal. I haven't really played Unreal 2, The Awakening. As far as I know, Unreal 2, not great. Even the first Unreal, it's sort of fondly remembered, but what I played of it felt kind of like a Quake clone, like with better technology because it came out a couple of years later. But it still was it is, the first Unreal is very much one of those like old shooters of like just move forward, killing stuff the whole time, right? And that's not that is fun or isn't fun, but it didn't. Those few levels that I played didn't really do it for me. However, Unreal Tournament, though, I think almost single-handedly alongside Quake 3 invented like the arena shooter, or like really solidified what is an arena shooter when it comes to multiplayer. And for that reason, its influence on first-person shooters cannot be denied. And they had a string of great games. First Unreal Tournament, amazing. Second Unreal Tournament, 2003, really fun. 2004 was also really cool. It was just 2003, but the next year. But they brought back all the maps from 2003 and a whole bunch more. Like, that game had like 100 maps in it, I think.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it had the Onslaught mode, which was really fun. 2004 brought back the Assault mode, which was like this really cool objective mode where you had attackers and defenders, and like depending on the map, it was all different. And 2004 was really cool because it had that space level where the attackers started out in space, flying spaceships around, and they had to like, take down the defenses or whatever of the base, and then they got into the base, and then it went to first-person shooter. That was so cool. And the Onslaught mode was really fun.
I never played that. What?
Dude, we should just fire up Unreal Tournament 2004 with some bots and like just play like Assault or Onslaught or anything like that. Because
how do you get that these days? Is that just on Steam?
Yeah, it's like $5.
Dude, I would do that tonight. Oh. I would play that tonight with you for $5.
That sounds so fun.
If we can just turn bots on. I'm going to get back to bots later on tonight in this episode when we talk about what we've been playing, because I've had some new experiences lately and I'm excited to share later.
Great. I'm excited. Okay. So Unreal Tournament. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't have a lot of experience with this game. I've played it like one or two times at people's houses, and I honestly, I just know I've played it. It's barely registering in my brain and memories. So I feel like, because of its influence, and it seems like it ended strong and it just kind of stopped, and that would kind of itch it over Call of Duty for me.
Yeah.
So B tier?
That's where I'm thinking. B tier. Those first games up to 2004, phenomenal games. That was almost 20 years ago now, so you can only coast on that for so long. Unreal Tournament 3 was like, it was okay, but I think the genre had moved on and it felt a little old, and it like the art was not great in that game. It felt like Unreal Tournament Gears of War edition, and so it was like it wasn't very colorful. Like the older games were really colorful and fun, and this one wasn't. It was one of those games that really fell victim to like the grim dark like browns and grays of the mid 2000s, you know. And it really suffered for it. And that's the last one. They were going to make a fourth one that was like on the Epic Store, and it was like very community driven. It was really, really cool. It was like in alpha, and it was free. But then they I think they shut it down kind of shortly after Fortnite took off, I want to say. Like they just sort of were like, okay, we're done putting effort into things that aren't pushing us forward. I think they wanted it to be like a showcase for the Unreal Engine, and then Fortnite really took off, and they were like, we can just use Fortnite for that. Okay, we don't need Unreal Tournament, which is kind of a bummer. But what I played of the alpha was neat. It seemed to have like the right idea. It was a lot more colorful. It looked great. It was a beautiful game. But that's it. That's the last of Unreal Tournament.
Rip Unreal Tournament. And no rumor mill about it coming back you heard of?
No rumor mill. Not that I've heard of.
All right, Unreal Tournament. Well, you can rest peacefully knowing that you're a B-tier first-person shooter franchise in our hearts.
I put it above COD because it didn't run itself into the ground. It had the one bad entry, bad in air quotes. I think it was still fun, but it was just not great. So it didn't turn itself into a yearly franchise that just got worse every year, which is sort of how it seems like Call of Duty is on the multiplayer front.
Yeah, it's weird because I wanted to mention also, we didn't talk about it, but Warzone, I don't really know, because they just saw the Battle Royale craze and hopped in with it. And they have their own little spin on it, and it's fun, and I've played it quite a bit. But I'm looking at this from the standpoint of buying a Call of Duty game and playing the multiplayer and the single player, and not necessarily a free-to-play Battle Royale that's got the Call of Duty name slapped on it. So I still stand by Call of Duty C tier. And it's weird. I think I'm like doubting myself when I put it there, is what's happening. But there's so many, because of their development schedule, it goes like good game dud, like back and forth. Like I think about Call of Duty World War II, like the newer one that was named World War II. Fun, very short single player campaign, pretty mediocre multiplayer, like no lasting appeal. So, and I didn't play Vanguard, but I heard it was kind of eh.
Yeah, I picked up Vanguard in the last sale, so I'll get to it one of these days. It was like half off, so I still probably paid too much.
Does that even have a single player game in it?
Oh, I hope so. If it doesn't, I'm going to feel really bad about buying it.
Yeah, that's the thing that's hard about Call of Duty now, is they might not have single player games.
That's true. I guess Black Ops 4 didn't have a single player. There are other ones that didn't have single player?
Yeah, I think this was one of the, which one was it? It was, no, it wasn't the one with Marshawn Lynch, or was it the one with Marshawn Lynch?
I know Black Ops 4 didn't.
Yeah, maybe I'm just thinking about Black Ops 4 that didn't have it. But yeah, I know other ones, now they're kind of leaning that way.
Well, Black Ops 3 came out on Xbox 360, and it was multiplayer only. I think it was Black Ops 3, and it was multiplayer only on PS3 and Xbox 360. Because we were well into the next generation by then. Kind of surprised it came out.
Black Ops 4 is the one I'm thinking of that was multiplayer only. And then they kind of saw the error of their ways, but then they put in a very tiny single player campaign. Like it's never a big amount, which I mean, maybe I'm the only person that cares about that, which is fine.
Yeah, I care about single player campaigns. I don't really play FPS's multiplayer except like Destiny, but even then it's like a co-op. I don't really enjoy the PvP that much in Destiny. It's okay when it's good, like because it's sometimes it's better than others depending on how the balance is and stuff. When it's fun, but when it's not fun, I really don't enjoy it.
Did you notice we didn't put Destiny on this list?
Oh wow, well we
both just forgot to put it on the list, which is so funny. A game we talk about arguably more than anything on this podcast, and we just forgot to put Destiny on here. We'll add it to the list. It's fine. All right, it's my pick, and I'm ready. I'm feeling it. I kind of want to go out there with a little bit of a weird one. We talked about it in an episode previously. I want to talk about Fear, First Encounter Assault Recon.
Oh, boy. That is a game that felt very next gen to me when it first came out in, I want to say 2005, 2006.
Yeah, and it's good. The first one is good. But the second one, the third one, it kind of just trails off and gets weird. And I don't think the innovation of the first one matches with how terrible the other two were. And I feel weird doing this. I want to put Fear in the D tier.
Okay. I'm okay with Fear in the D tier. because I think you're right. It wouldn't be on this list at all. It wouldn't have even crossed our minds if the first one wasn't so good. If the 2 and 3 were the only ones that existed, I wouldn't even think about them.
Dude, I just remembered 2 franchises. You ready?
Yeah. Okay. Just add them in there. We'll get to them.
And then I'm going to put this one we just talked about. So I guess it's only just one, and Destiny, but that's fine. So, but yeah, Fear in the D tier, which feels bad. And honestly, if there was an F tier, I might put Fear in there.
Yeah, that's one we'd like to see make a Phoenix resurgence, right?
I would love Fear to rise from the ashes. That would be the game that I would want to see fully rebooted. Take the story of the first one, redo it for modern consoles in this generation. I would love that. But I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So until then, Fear, we'll see you in the D tier.
Too bad. Okay, so we have B, C, and D tier with Unreal Tournament, COD, and Fear. Let's talk about something that should probably be, well, I don't want to spoil where I think it should be, but let's talk about BioShock.
Ooh, you know what I think.
First game came out in 2007, and it was a revelation. Graphics were great, story phenomenal, especially that twist at the end that's so good, even though it's like 15 years old. I still don't want to spoil it for people. Mm-hmm. There's a really great twist in that game. A couple, actually, I think, thematic twists and story twists that really, really love the
real
first
twists
BioShock.
and turns.
Yeah. Second BioShock, I would say it's as good as the first one. And so a lot of people, when it came out, I remember a lot of people were like, it's not, because it wasn't quite the like splash that the first one did, because it was just the same. It was good. It was very good, but it didn't really do that much.
But then they came out with that DLC that was amazing that I loved.
Minerva's Den, maybe the best single piece of DLC ever.
It was so good.
Yeah. It's a completely separate story, right?
BioShock 2's DLC was just... It honestly was like, oh, okay, you want something interesting that you didn't like the original stuff? Well, hey, guess what we got? And then they just drop a bombshell with that DLC. That makes it so good.
Really, really great. And then you got BioShock Infinite, which came out in, I want to say, 2013, which is totally separate. I mean, not totally separate. I guess it exists in the same universe, but it takes place in a floating city instead of an underwater city. And it takes place in early 1900s, like 1911 or something, like before World War I want to say. And that was really good too. It didn't quite have the same horror or claustrophobia feeling of the first 2 games, because those were in like an underwater. It was very dark in the city of Rapture. It's like this failed city. But the city of Columbia in the sky was really, really neat. And it had those 2 DLCs, Burial at Sea, Part 1 and 2, that were
phenomenal
connections back to the original BioShock. So cool. I really loved BioShock Infinite.
And it's hard because there are a lot of critics that say BioShock Infinite was too heavy-handed with their symbolism. But I'm also just like, it's a video game. This whole series is campy a little bit.
Yeah, it's all pretty heavy-handed. I'm okay with it, and yeah, I still loved it. I don't disagree. Like, that's fine, but I just don't see it as a negative necessarily. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to do it. I'm giving us our first S tier.
BioShock S tier.
BioShock S tier. But if you disagree, I am willing to negotiate A tier.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. S tier. I don't want to. Okay. I don't want to throw it too hard into because I think the critiques that I've read are outer critiques when every part of me loves this series, and I'm fine with it, flaws and all. S tier. It's our choice, Tyler.
That's right. S tier. BioShock. Loved it. Mike, what are we doing next?
I think we should go to another favorite of ours. A personal favorite of yours, and you kind of brought me into it, especially with its resurgence in 2016, and that is Doom.
Oh, Doom. 1993, first game came out, right? 1994 for the second game. Second game was more like an expansion on the first. But that was kind of how games were back then, and the first one was so good that was fine. It just sort of kept going with the same thing. It originated this like we're rolling through a maze killing stuff. Wolfenstein kind of did it, but Doom really perfected that, I think. And then we didn't see anything for 10 years because the second game was in 94. We got like Doom 64, I guess, which is a pretty cool game too. And it got ported to everything. It was on Super Nintendo. This 3D, well, pseudo 3D game was on Super Nintendo. It was on the 32X. It was on the Atari Jaguar. There's a PlayStation port of it. I think there's a Saturn port of it. This game was on everything.
It spawned the It Plays Doom internet trend.
Oh, yeah, because they did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just being able to put it on everything, like, it's still, people are still modding the original Doom.
Yeah. And you know why they're able to do that is because this is one of the first times or maybe highest profile times I've seen a company do this. I'm sure it wasn't the first. They weren't the first person to ever do this. But in 1997, only 4 years after the game came out, id open sourced the Doom engine. So that's for Doom and Doom 2 because they ran on the same engine. And that spawned this can it run Doom thing because people were porting Doom to everything. That it was like it got Linux ports, Mac port. Well, it was already on Mac, but it got Linux ports. It got ported to iPods could run Doom, graphing calculators could run Doom. Like anything that you could install software onto got some sort of Doom port. I played the original Doom X on Xbox, like on a modded Xbox. That was so cool.
I bought them for my Switch. They're super fun on Switch. It's really great.
Yeah, I just love all the community ports that like people just made because they open sourced their engine and they were like, you know, here you go, do what you want with this. And like, there's some really cool stuff out there. So really, really appreciate that. And it did that for a long time. They did Quake as well. And like all their stuff eventually gets open sourced usually.
Now, with that said, there are some weird sequels that were maybe a stain on the franchise. Like you have Doom. People didn't really like Doom 3. Some people got mad at it. Doom 64 is not looked upon very highly.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
But does that taint it enough? Do you think that taints it enough?
I don't think
it
Doom
does.
64 taints it. Doom 3 maybe does. I think Doom 3 was a good game, but it wasn't what people wanted from Doom. It was like more of a Dead Space than it was Doom, I think. It was like kind of a slower moving survival horror feeling game. Than a like rip and tear, let's just gun down massive hordes of demons.
Now, do you think that they get a high score also because of their amazing rise from the ashes we've seen in the last, like, I guess now 6 years with Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal?
Yes.
I don't even think we would be talking, well, we would be talking about Doom because it's very influential, but without those 2016 and Doom Eternal, I don't think this gets as high as it gets.
I agree. It saw a little bit of a dip and it has resurged. Both of those games are phenomenal games that really captured like what was fun about Doom in the 90s in a way that Doom 3 didn't capture. And for that, I think that it gets higher marks. But I'll let you place it on the line here, Mike. What do you think?
Well, I think the feeling you get playing classic Doom, where you move super fast and you just, like you said, rip and tear and run and gun, and the influence it had makes it an S tier.
Okay.
I think this is an S tier game. And I feel like if you disagree with us on that, you're very wrong. Wow.
Yeah. So it has one dip in quality. That's Doom 3.
But it wasn't a bad game. It was just not what people were expecting, like you said.
Yeah.
And it was so influential. Half the games on this list wouldn't be here without Doom.
That's true. And there's an argument to be made that none of these games would be here. We wouldn't even be doing this episode if Doom didn't exist.
Without you, John Carmack, avid listener of our podcast.
Close personal friend of the podcast.
Close personal friend of our podcast. Him and Shigeru Miyamoto and Tyler and I always go out to lunch every week. We fly to each other like in Console Wars.
Yeah.
All right. That was my pick. What are you thinking, Tyler? What are you thinking?
Okay. Next one is a series that I have not very much experience with. I think you have more experience with it. But I thought we should bring it up because I think it's worth talking about in the pantheon of first-person shooters, and that is Far Cry.
Ooh, this is the one that I was writing down and on my own little list that I was thinking of, and I don't know how to rate this because Far Cry 1 and Far Cry 2, very influential for PCs and gaming as far as a look and a feel, but playing them now, as a person who has played them now, feel really hard to play. Extremely.
The first one especially.
The first one especially. 2 is way better, but the first one is pretty hard to play. And I've played 3, and I've played a little bit. Actually, I've watched people play 4. I don't even think, because I bought all these games and I haven't really played them yet. I am judging it entirely on Far Cry 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And 3 is good, but now I know 5 is good because that's the game I've also watched, and the 5's on my list of games I need to play myself. Even though I've had it spoiled for me, I need to play this game. I would push it though to COD. It's very much become an average Ubisoft exploration, unlock these points game, and I think that makes it more of a C tier game.
Okay. Yeah, it is sort of, these days, it kind of exemplifies the problem with Ubisoft games that everybody has loved. Like Assassin's Creed has the same issue. Even like Immortals, Phoenix Rising is like the same sort of thing. And that was like a brand new franchise. Like Watch Dogs is kind of like that too, I think. So I think you're right.
Also, I think 6, the newest one, wasn't really received as well as, say, 5, because 5 was considered like very good.
Yeah, even though it had Giancarlo Esposito in it.
I think it was just it was like okay. It wasn't bad. Again, it's just fine. Like it's here. I'll double check this with what I'm thinking in my head because I was like definitely following along with it at launch. But then again, I mean, I'm judging this game without ever playing it. So if people want to get mad at me for that, they certainly can. But I feel like us leaving Far Cry off the list is way worse than us mentioning it with these 3 games.
I agree.
So yeah, it got like 6s and 7s out of 10. I'm looking at the Metacritic score though, is in the 70s for all 3.
Yikes. Okay. So maybe a dip in quality here.
I think it's because they're not innovating. They're not changing the formula, right? Which you get from a video game studio perspective. You want to make something that is going to be lasting. And in a way, it's kind of like they're doing their own arc with Call of Duty. Like when Call of Duty got like Kevin Spacey and Marshawn Lynch and it gets like stars. Now they have the Giancarlo Esposito character in there to try to like sell, the villain of a famous actor they're grabbing. So it's kind of interesting. They're on the same trajectory. So maybe in like 2 or 3 years, we'll see a remake of Far Cry that's crazy good.
I hope so. That would be a good one to remake, I think. It's gotten like classic. There's like Far Cry Classic that came out on the 360. I guess it hasn't seen a proper remake even since then. That was a long time ago. But that's one that, you could reboot and retell that story.
Far Cry 3 is an amazing game. I really had fun with it. I really enjoyed it. But I had fun with it and really enjoyed it when it came out. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That formula has been so done now and tested by Ubisoft over and over again that I don't think it has the same appeal. So I would say this is a C tier video game series.
I'm with you. I'm with you on C tier for Far Cry. Great start. The first game was good in 2004, and it had the advantage of the graphics were so good in 2004. That was like the benchmarking thing. Like, the joke, like, can it run Crysis? The joke was, can it run Far Cry? Or it wasn't a joke. It was like, that was an actual thing. Like, people use that as a benchmark because the water looked so good in that game. Like, the amount of trees and foliage and like it's just everything, like the ragdoll physics, like just everything about it was really well presented for the time. It looks dated now, but it was really good in 2004.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it, again, an average good game, but nothing out of this world extraordinary for our tier list.
Yeah.
So it's my pick now. I'm going to pick a game that you're more familiar with. Ha ha ha. Nanny nanny boo boo, Tyler. Okay? Crysis.
Oh, we're going to go straight from Far Cry to Crysis.
You just mentioned it. Can it play Crysis? So we got to talk about it.
This game spawned from Far Cry because the first Far Cry game was made by Crytek. And then after, it was a Ubisoft game, but Crytek, like, they just published it. And Crytek was the developer. I don't know the exact relationship between Crytek and Ubisoft. But the second Far Cry game, which was a very different game from the first one, was not made by Crytek because Crytek went to work immediately on Crysis, which was a spiritual successor to Far Cry in that a lot of the gameplay ideas are the same. Like you're sort of given a very open, it's not open world, but the levels are very open in that they give you many, many different ways to accomplish your tasks, which was one of the cool things about the original Far Cry. Because you could kind of play stealthy, or you could go in guns a-blazing, or you could do any number of different things. And Crysis like cranked that up to 11 because you could knock. I remember the cool thing was like you could shoot a tree and it would fall over, right? Like that was like, oh my gosh, the physics and the wow, you can mow down trees.
A couple games on this list where you're like, oh, the destruction physics are crazy. That's what sold them. That was a whole genre of game for a hot minute. Was that?
It was, yeah. That was the hot item was destruction physics. And so Crysis was a very fun game on its own, the original one. It definitely got more notoriety as a benchmark, same as Far Cry. That's where the meme "Can it run Crysis" comes from, is because like that game was known to melt systems, and like even maybe not to this day, because I think there are systems that can max out this game from 2007. But like for a long time, maximum graphics in Crysis was like not attainable by mere mortal computer hardware, which is not that common for a game to like be totally unrunnable at max settings when it comes out. Like usually it's like max settings, you have to have the best that's out when the game comes out, but you can do it. You couldn't with Crysis. It was the game was just not was future proofed in that way, I guess. And so that was a really cool feature about it. So everybody had it. It was the game to buy when you built your system because you wanted to know, well, how high up can I crank Crysis, right? That was like the benchmark of like, well, this plays Crysis on high settings, and like everybody goes, oh, wow, you must have a really cool computer. So that first one was really cool. Did you play the first one?
I never got to play Crysis games. I just never, because I never had access to PC gaming at this time, I never got to play them, and I feel kind of like a scrub, honestly. This is all you, Tyler.
It was a PC exclusive for a long time. It eventually got a Xbox 360 port, and I think the remastered ones that came out a year or two ago, those are on like Switch. Those are on everything now, so you can play it if you're a console player now. But yeah, I guess it was exclusive to PC for a long time. However, Crysis 2, when that came out a couple of years later, was also on consoles. And Crysis 3, I'm just going to kind of lump them together because they're very similar. They don't have quite the open world. Or not open world. I shouldn't say that. Crysis doesn't have a real open world, but the levels had the same idea of you can tackle this in many different ways, like how you want to take this level. But 2 and 3 definitely felt a little bit more restricted in how open the arenas were, and that part of that is because the second one took place like in New York or like in a big city, and so it was the joke was you go from the actual jungle in this. I think it was in North Korea, the first game. It's like actual jungle to the concrete jungle in New York. And so those games were fun. They felt a little bit more like a linear Call of Duty than the first Crysis did. And they didn't quite melt people's PCs the same way that the first one did. They looked incredible still, but they just didn't do quite what Crysis did in terms of being so far ahead of what was out at the time. And they were on 360 and PS3, so I'm sure that sort of hampers what they can do a little bit in terms of like that may be a reason they chose to make things less open, is just because consoles couldn't handle it at the time. Those games are fun. I played them both, but they're not quite the same as the first one. So I definitely don't want to put this in S tier, but I might give this our first A tier for Crysis, just because of how in the zeitgeist it was and still is, even separate from its gameplay, just like being the sort of tech powerhouse that it was. It has a really good place in PC gaming history. And so for that reason, I put it in the A tier.
I love it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think it's better than Far Cry because it didn't fall off the same way Far Cry did. I would love to see that one make a comeback because Crysis 3 is probably 10 years old now, so...
You just want to see it, you want to see it update.
Yeah.
You want to see it get the love. And it was a good game. I was under the impression it was. People enjoyed it.
Yeah, they're all good. They're all good. Oh, and Crysis Warhead was an expansion for the first one that was a little bit more character-focused in the story. And I remember like really enjoying the characters you play as a different member of, like sort of along It's like alongside the same storyline as the first Crisis, but you play as a guy who's there in the beginning of the first Crisis, and then he's like goes off on his own mission on the other side of the island or something to do whatever, and then you kind of meet up with him later. And so the expansion is like, well, what was that guy doing while you were doing the other stuff, right? And I remember it being a lot of fun, and like I really liked the focus on the character, which was really cool. I can't remember his name. It was like Psycho, I think. They all had weird code names. But yeah, that one was good too. Warhead was good. Crisis Warhead.
Nice. Well, is it? I just picked that one, so now you got to pick, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick one that we both have experience with. I think you have a little more recent experience with it. Battlefield, that series.
Ooh, Battlefield. Let me tell you what. Battlefield is going to be a hard one for me because I want to make it higher than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Because Battlefield, that we talked with 1942, Bad Company
Great
2.
game. Yep.
I was a big fan of Battlefield 3 and also Battlefield 1, the World War I version. I actually really enjoyed that game, and I think it still has people that play it. So, but as far as where this game should go, it should be at COD level or below COD level, based on because I feel like we're watching the fall of Battlefield. Especially, it's not iterate like Fall of Duty. Wow. Okay. Battlefield. I don't know why I said that. Battlefield. Is it 5? But it was like V.
That was World War.
Very okay. And then Battlefield 2042 is just. I'm going to describe it as a hot mess. Is how I would describe it.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Like Battlefield does this thing where the new one comes out and it's a technical just mess because for some reason they're all full of bugs all the time and they can't get it together before the game comes out. And then there's always weird like gameplay stuff where people are like, this is not good, we don't like this. And then like a year or two later, they will have done a lot of updates and like the tech issues will mostly be gone and they will have made some like gameplay changes that make it better. And I feel like Battlefield 1 had that and then Battlefield 5 had that. And now 2042, I think, is starting to come around because it's been out for a little over a year now, I think. It's starting to come around. People are like, actually, this game's kind of okay. I think Battlefield 4 had similar issues, too.
Battlefield 4 was the Battlefield that I got into it on, and I kind of joined in, and I bought a used copy right when they had all the updates come out, and it was amazing. I played it so much. I loved it. And then I went back to Battlefield 3. That's how much I loved it. And then I went forward to Battlefield 1, and that was a great game. So I think that I'm going to put it at C tier because I don't want to get into the whole COD versus Battlefield thing that happened a while back, which I kind of want to talk about in an episode one time. I was
going to say, I'll get into it. I think Battlefield's better than COD, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
Yeah, I think it should be C tier is where it's at currently. I think it is average. It has made just as many mistakes as Call of Duty has, and I think that it is currently on a decline, but it might be coming up again if they can figure it out. Because when they get it right and they get the formula, it's fun. It's a great, big, massive battle game. But when it's bad, and honestly, they hadn't changed their UI for years, and it feels it. It's so bad. It's slow to load. Things don't work all the time. It's rough. So I think it should stay at C tier.
Oh, man, that's
Is that too low for you? You want to put it at B tier?
Well, because I played a lot of... I played 1942 at LAN parties with my buds. And I don't think I liked it as much as Call of Duty. I did enjoy the vehicles because that was one of the cool things about Battlefield is that it had vehicles. You could fly planes and stuff. I played a lot of Battlefield 2 on PC. That was really cool. And that was the first game that I played that had a sort of a progression system to it in that the different classes, if you played them a lot, you eventually unlocked like a better weapon under that class, which was really fun to play towards. It had the criminally underutilized commander mode where like one of the players gets to it's not a separate game, they're still on the ground shooting and stuff, but they also can call in call in care packages, they can like designate objectives, and if you go to the objective that your commander has like designated, you get extra points for doing that. So it was like worth it to follow the call. But not so worth it to follow the call that you would give the match up. Like if you knew it was the wrong call, you could do something different, which was like this cool level of freedom. And you had to be a certain rank to be able to be a commander. So you never had like some noob coming in who's never played Battlefield before, like telling you what to do. It was always like you had to be like kind of a high rank to do it, which was really cool. And they brought that back, I think, in Battlefield 3 and 4. or at least 4, I think, had the commander mode. That was cool. I don't think they still have it. Maybe people don't like playing it or something, but it was a neat idea. Bad Company 2 is like probably the most fun I've ever had in an online shooter, like multiplayer PvP online shooter. I think it's the most fun I've ever had. I sunk a lot of time into that on 360, and then I bought it again on PC to keep playing it on PC.
Well, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like we're bumping this up to B tier. I think you just sold me.
Yeah.
You just sold me. It is B tier, officially.
It's got to be B tier for me, at least. Like, we can keep... If you want to say it's C, that's fine, but in my heart, it's a B tier.
I put it C because I was not trying to get into the console... the game battle between Call of Duty, which I think we should do an episode on one day. We should do an episode on it one day. I think it's good. Like, that early, like, Modern Warfare... Was it Modern Warfare 2 versus Battlefield 3? That was like a big deal. That was the thing that people were talking about.
Yeah, I guess. I think they're different games. They satisfy different itches. Like Call of Duty has is the Twitch, see enemy, kill enemy, like, and that's really fun and like has like is fun to play, and like the maps are designed around that. While Battlefield is like, we're trying to make this a battlefield, right? These are huge open maps with cool destruction that happens, and there's a lot of players in this game, and it's chaotic, and it like you really have to work together to win, or at least work with your small squad to win. I just think they're too different. Like, you can have a preference, of course, but it's hard to say like Battlefield is better than Call of Duty or whatever, because they're trying to do different things.
I like that. I like that description. It's a very sane, normal description versus yelling at people on the internet. Battlefield is a B tier game as far as I'm concerned. Let's keep it there.
Okay, great.
Can I pick the next one now? Is it my turn to pick?
You can, yeah. Yep.
I'm going to pick, you just said Twitch shooting. Let's talk about Counter-Strike. Boom.
Oh, boy.
I think Counter-Strike is so important for multiplayer and competitive and professional gaming.
I agree.
But I think the community in general is hurtful and mean. And
yeah, because of how competitive it is. Yeah, because of how competitive it is, this is like the first game that I probably had like a toxic experience in, of people being just
for me
mean.
It was the first game I've ever had a toxic experience in. I was like, oh man, I joined chat. I was a teenager. I just got my computer built, and I was like, I don't know how to fix my ping. It's really high today. And then a guy called me a terrible name, and then I left the server, and I didn't jump in Counter-Strike again for a while.
Oh, dang. Which Counter-Strike did you start with?
I started with Source. I didn't play 1.6. I started with Source, and then I played Global Offensive, and I still love Source so much. I think about it a lot. I miss it. It's fun. But I pick up Global Offensive every once in a while, and it's fun. I'm going to put this in A tier. That's where I want it to go. Are you okay with it being A tier?
I'm with you on that. I think there aren't really any duds here. Like, 1.6 was a really, really fun... I mean, 1.6 is what it is in terms, like, you can, if you disagree that it's fun, that's fine, but like its influence on gaming cannot be denied, and for that reason you have to give it some credit. The only sort of dud that you could say in the Counter-Strike series is like Condition Zero. When that came out on PC, it was basically just, it was a whole game that they sold that was basically just added bots to Counter-Strike. Like the single player mode, and I say single player in air quotes, is just like a sort of loose, like very loose story, maybe not even loose story, like put around bot matches. Sort of like the like single player mode in like an Unreal Tournament game, where it's just like, yeah, fight to the top of the ladder, but it's all just bot matches of what you're going to be doing in multiplayer anyway. But it wasn't any worse than 1.6, I don't think. Like, because the game, it was so unchanged that it was like basically the same game. Like the textures were a little higher quality. The maps were like a little bit different. But I played a lot of Condition Zero instead of 1.6 just because I liked how it looked better. But you also got to give 1.6 credit because it was a free mod for Half-Life.
That is pretty crazy.
You didn't have to buy Counter-Strike. If you had Half-Life and you went to Target and bought Counter-Strike off the shelf because you wanted to play Counter-Strike, you goofed, because you could have just downloaded a mod.
That's right. Could have just gotten that mod and lived your best life. It's true.
That's right. Global Offensive was cool. I didn't play a lot of it. And I guess it is cool. I shouldn't say was. It's still a game that is actively played. So I played a bit of Source as well, but I was kind of getting out of it by the time Source came out.
Well, so this is the thing. We're at almost 50. We're at 45 minutes right now. So okay. I think we should do one more game that'll be exactly half our list, and then we'll jump into emails. So what would you like to pick for the last one we talk about today?
I want to talk about Red Faction, but I want you to talk about Red Faction because I have never played a Red Faction game.
Okay, so I played Red Faction 1 and 2. Red Faction 1 was very much trying to be the alternative Halo on the original Xbox when it came out. And it was okay. It was fine. It was fun. Red Faction 2 took a completely different direction where it was like a single-player story game. It also had multiplayer. But this was the other game that was obsessed with blowing things up. It was all about destroying terrain. That's what it was all about. And it was fun in that way, but it also went from being a first-person shooter to being a third-person shooter, I believe, with Red Faction 3. Let me confirm that before I don't just start talking and claiming things that I might not be true. But I'm pretty sure that the third Red Faction, Guerrilla, was a third-person game. Let me just double-check it, because I need to know. Yes, it's a third-person shooter in an open world. That's where they went with it. So I really don't want to talk about it in that sense. I want to talk about 1 and 2, and I think that this game is one of those ones from my childhood that I really like, but I think it's D tier. I think it has to go in the D tier, which is a bummer.
Dang.
I'm giving a game I love in the D tier because it abandoned first person. It just completely abandoned it and went away and did its own thing. And I think that was upsetting to me as a fan, and it gave up, and it belongs in the D tier.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate another game being in the D tier because if we call it there, that ends us with 2 games in every tier.
Dude, I'd almost put, if we had an F tier, I might have put Red Faction in that over Fear, now that I think about it. Because
Dang.
Red Faction just it abandoned the entire medium we're talking about here. They walked away from first person.
Dang,
I'm actually
I'm
upset.
So sorry.
Like I didn't
You're
think I
like,
would get upset
heated
about this, but I am getting heated about it. I'm gonna like read some blogs later and get very angry. I think not really, but I think Red Faction. I'm putting it in there right now. I'm cutting it and pasting it. It is D tier, along with Fear, the other game from my childhood that I love. I'm just destroying my childhood this episode. That's all I'm doing.
Dang, man.
So right now, where it stands, we have 10 games in ranked. D tier is Fear and Red Faction. In C tier, we have Call of Duty and Far Cry. In B tier, we have Unreal Tournament and Battlefield. In A tier, we have Crysis and Counter-Strike. And in S tier, we have BioShock and Doom. We have 10 more games left, and that's not including the ones I'm sure we're going to think of in between this episode and the other one. So we're in a good place.
Yeah, this is good.
We got some emails to read, but before I do that, Tyler, what you been playing?
Well, I have been playing something different finally. Still working on Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I've iceboxed it a little bit because I'm gonna do some traveling for Christmas, and I want something to be able to play. We're driving from California to Washington. That's a long drive. I want something to play when it's not my turn to drive in the car, so I'm saving my Switch game. So instead of playing that the past week, I have been playing Gotham Knights, which I picked up in the Steam sale for 40% off because all the reviews were like, this game's not that great. And so I thought I would just pick it up on sale rather than pay full price for it. And I got to say, I'm enjoying it. I'm only 2 hours in, so I haven't run into any things that like really gets my goat yet. The storyline is fun so far. I've only played as Batgirl, and she has some cool gameplay. I'm sure the other Robins have gameplay. It's all Robins. Robins all the way down. It's Nightwing,
Robins
Red
all
Hood,
the way down.
Yeah, because it's Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Robin, Tim Drake Robin. So it's just Robins and Batgirl. So yeah, I've been having fun with it. Storyline is pretty good so far. It's a mystery. It's like a detective story, which I really enjoy. In
Bet
Batman
they wish
things
they
like,
had the world's greatest detective for that.
Well, he's dead. He dies right at the beginning. So in the opening cutscene.
Spoilers,
Batman dies.
Tyler.
So
Jeez
spoilers.
Louise.
I think if you have any passing interest in this game, you already know that because it's in every trailer. It's not a secret, but it's not connected to the Arkham games, although it sure seems like it is, but I guess it isn't. So that has been fun. I can see what people have been talking about that they don't like about it, in that it's very like XP focused, so you're leveling up to unlock your abilities and stuff, which I don't hate on the surface, but when you go in and look at the quests for it, they have like level recommendations on it. So like, oh, do this quest when you're level 3 to 6, right? For the main story. What I'm worried about is that I will reach a point in the story where I'm going to be like level 5, and the next story beat is going to be like be level 8 to 12 to do this. And I'm going to have to just go patrol Gotham and just beat up bad guys to grind XP. And while that's like kind of fun to do on the way between story beats, like I enjoy that just sort of on the way, I really don't want to just like go out just to do that, just to like solve like or like stop crimes and stuff in the city. I don't want to do Batman chores. And I think that's what's coming, and maybe that's what people are like not jazzed about. And then there's also like a whole item system that I haven't gotten into that's very MMO, like power levels and all that kind of stuff, which I think might be a little too much. It definitely feels like a game that was designed to be like a live service game, where, because it's co-op too, so like probably kind of trying to be like Arkham Asylum but Destiny, you know? And so it's not that, but a lot of that stuff I think is still in there, and they probably wanted to like sell XP boosts and stuff like that. So if that sort of kicks in and starts to make the single player game not fun, then I will definitely understand why people are upset about Gotham Knights. But I've been having fun with it, and I'm playing it on PC, so 60 frames per second, baby.
Yeah, that gear score thing is the thing that I heard as being really upsetting about the game. That was the big complaint I heard. Yeah, just because it is an MMO. Like it's mostly single player, and you can play it co-op. It's definitely you hit the nail on the head, I think, by saying that it looks like it was supposed to be a games as a service game, and then maybe Avengers did so poorly that they switched it to being a more of a co-op experience.
That sounds like, yes, that is probably it. But I haven't tried any of the co-op stuff. I would like to.
Well, I haven't bought it because it looks so bad. I didn't think anyone would play it. But, when it goes on sale for inevitably being like 10% its original price, I will get it. Okay,
yeah,
I'm not
it'll
afraid.
probably go on sale it was on sale in the Thanksgiving sale, so it'll probably go on sale for the winter sale too. So.
Oh, yeah.
What have you been playing?
I've been playing 2 new games, which is pretty exciting. I tried Insurgency on my Xbox One with some friends, and it was hilarious because it's a Game Pass game. I would describe it as PUBG, but it's tactical military levels where you have these like checkpoints, you got to take them or you got to defend them. It's really hard, but the fun part about it, and what you kind of mentioned earlier with bots, is you can play it like competitively where it gets very sweaty, and I don't need that in my life. Or you could just play against bots with like co-op teammates that it collects a team online for you. And that's what me and my friends did. I had so much fun. It was so cool.
That's great.
To just explore this game for like 2 or 3 hours with my friends and just play it. And will I pick it up again? I have no idea. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But that was super fun. The game I'm really into, though, right now is Warhammer 40k Darktide. It came out on Game Pass. It's super fun. It's co-op. It's got this ridiculous grim, dark, gothic horror fantasy vibe going that's way over the top, and I'm into it. And it's fun.
Love it.
And that game is really doing it for me right now. There is a off-topic thing. I want to give a shout-out. I don't know if we've done shout-outs on the podcast. Have we done shout-outs, Tyler?
I don't know, but it's our podcast. We do whatever we want.
Awesome. So I'm going to shout out Elijah in Pennsylvania asked me to do an interview because he was looking for an expert on Nintendo, which I think we can all agree listening to this is a stretch. But I said yes, right? And it was great. It was super fun. And he's doing a project for school, and so I helped out. But the best part is Elijah was the expert on Nintendo, and it was really great talking to him about it. And he gave us some really cool book recommendations. So I just wanted to throw these out there to you, Tyler, because these look cool. So Nintendo Magic is the first book that apparently is a collection of essays about Nintendo. So they're different stories each time. And then there's also a book called Game Over by David Sheff. That's a pretty popular book, actually. It's called Game Over, How Nintendo Zapped an American Industry. But the third and final book, and this is the one that really piques my interest, and it might be kind of a special episode because it's not video game related, but it's Nintendo related, is there is a book and a blog called Before Mario. And it's blog.beforemario.com, where a person has documented from their personal collection toys and games that Nintendo created between 1889 and the early 1980s. Essentially the pre-Nintendo entertainment.
As we know it.
Yeah. And so the book is like a coffee table book with these really colorful images and amazing stuff, but the blog is full of so much information. And I've been reading through it because I just find this stuff so fun. Like, you know, I'm a sucker for those like electromechanical games and like how those worked and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some crazy stuff in here. Like, did you know Nintendo did an off-brand version of Lego?
I did not know that. I'm looking at this Twister thing they made. They made Twister.
They made Twister. They made multiple games that use the NES Zapper technology in electromechanical form. This is so interesting to me and something I really want to get into. And this is probably going to be on an episode on the podcast sooner or later because I'm kind of obsessed with it right now, to the point where I've scoured YouTube for everything I can find about this stuff as well.
Love it.
So before Mario, those are all Elijah's recommendations. Elijah also brought up a very interesting point, and that is you don't hear a lot about what Nintendo was doing in World War II. And I looked into that also, and I'm having a hard time finding it, which is exciting to me because this might be my fun side research project for the podcast.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait.
What is Nintendo doing during World War II? I'm curious. Someone had to have covered it, but I'm sure I'll find something because it's very exciting to me. So shout out to Elijah. Hope your project goes well. Thank you for interviewing me, even though he's clearly the Nintendo expert. All right. So with that, we have a couple emails to read. If you want to send us an email, you can do that at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. Would you like to read Alexa's email?
I would love to read Alexa's email. Alexa says, well, the subject is she has, oh my gosh, my Alexa just went off in my room.
Oh, that's the danger. That's the danger of when she emails. I'm leaving this in, by the way.
Good. The subject is she has returned, and the email is hello, Myler and Tyler. This is what she wrote. Myler and Tyler. Hello, Myler and Tyler. I've returned after a long hiatus from listening to your podcast. I've got a lot of catching up to do. Apologies in advance if this email is a bit long. I've just got a question for y'all. First of all, welcome back, Alexa. I was making sure my speaker didn't go off. Welcome back. Thanks for listening again.
How did she know my full legal name was Myler?
I don't know. She must have looked you up in the system.
I'm not sure about that.
She's still talking.
Did you hear what she said?
No.
My speaker said, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, so I just got roasted by Alexa, is what you're telling me?
You did. Yeah.
Follow-up question for the emailer, Alexa. How do you live like this after Amazon has ruined your name?
The email goes on. Have either of you heard of or played the Pokemon board game? It's called Master Trainer and was released probably around 20 years ago. They did 2 versions of it, I believe. The initial one and then an updated one for Generation 2 and possibly a third for Gen 3. Anyways, it was quite a fun game. The board itself is a map of the region. The one I played was Gen 2, so it was a map of Johto. And you'd be moving along the routes, making your way to each of the gyms with the goal of finishing the Pokemon League. Each space on the board has a different possible event that can happen, such as battling another player, trading with another player, encountering a Pokemon, and so on. One thing I loved most about the game was that the box featured all of the Pokemon in the game on it, and several of them were miscolored. Was hilarious.
I'm looking up this game right now. It is $300.
Holy moly. Wow.
This is for the 2001 version.
Dang, that is incredible. The email continues. You'd start off the game with a single starter Pokemon out of a choice of several different starters and baby Pokemon. The Pokemon game pieces were little circles with the picture of the Pokemon and its stats. You'd level up your Pokies by winning battles, of course, and when you do, you'd put these little green wedge pieces around the edges of the Pokemon game piece to indicate a +1 to its power. You're able to get new Pokemon from finishing gyms or other event spaces on the board, and Pokemon are separated into different strength categories, with the higher tier Pokemon being less likely to appear or otherwise be available when finding an encounter. You'd eventually be able to catch legendary Pokemon, which obviously were a heck of a lot stronger than anything else. And once you've got a sufficiently strong team, you'd go and take on the Pokemon League. I don't think it's known as a very good game, but I'll be danged if it isn't fun as heck. And I didn't censor the email. That's actually what she wrote. I'll be danged if it ain't fun as heck.
Thank you for appreciating the way this podcast is clean, Alexa. Appreciate you.
I'll include a link to a page that shows off some images of the game, and so there's some pictures here that we should probably like post on Discord or something, because
I'll post them right after this.
Looks very interesting. The email ends, 8-legged rear ends, Alexa from the Bay Area.
Thank you, Alexa. Tyler, don't say the name.
10,190 square miles.
The Bay Area is 10,190 square miles. I've been
Thank
told by my
you,
smart
other
speaker.
Alexa. Appreciate this. Do you think they realized how much this would ruin people's lives named Alexa when they created this product, Alexa?
I don't know. They must have considered it at least.
But they didn't care. But that is a very exciting email, Alexa, and I actually was looking into this board game because it's something that I'm like, am I about to drop $200-something? Because they used copies for $200-something. And I'm like, am I about to drop that much on a board game that I'm going to play once and never play again? And it's possible.
Is it in... Can you find it for Tabletop Simulator, maybe?
Ooh, that's a good point. Let me look that up after the show for sure. Because I have Tabletop Simulator, and I would totally do that. That would be a fun night for the Discord crew.
Yeah,
Tyler?
we can do that.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
If we can find it, yeah. That sounds awesome. The game sounds like it's pretty fun, or at least fun to check out. The only Pokemon board game I ever played was Pokemon Monopoly. Which was just Monopoly, but Pokemon themed.
So you just got angrier, but there was Pokemon involved.
Yeah. Yep.
Got it. Well, I'm going to read this next email, and then we're going to call it good for the day.
Yeah.
This email is from Will from Texas, and it says, thoughts on the book. That book being Console Wars, which we just finished last week. Good afternoon, M&T. I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I will be giving my brief thoughts on the book instead of sending you the B-movie script maybe next time. I think it's because... we had just mentioned how we wanted to have shorter emails on the podcast, so here we go. I first read this book in the spring of 2019, and it actually inspired me to find y'all's podcast. Ooh, that's exciting.
Nice.
I always wanted a Sega of Japan point of view, so I'm going to jump on Burger's book rec, which is true. Burger Champ has a book rec for the more Japanese side focused version of the argument, because honestly, we really did only get the side from Sega of America and Tom Kalinske.
Yeah, Console Wars definitely has a perspective that you're seeing this through, and you don't really see much from the Japan team other than what we learn from Kalinske and the folks on the American side. So of course, you have to take everything about Sega of Japan through the lens of they were not getting along with the people that we hear about them from. So they of course kind of come off as the bad guys in the book.
Yeah, totally. And so that book, by the way, is called Service Games by Sam Pettis, and I have put it on our list of books to cover because I think it's important for us to cover both sides. And I realized after reading the last book, I was like, man, it makes you really hate Sega of Japan. And it's like, yep, they did its job then, even though that's probably not true. Mm-hmm. All right, let's continue on with Will's email. I feel like Sega walked so that Sony could run. Sega proved there was a market for more teen and adult-oriented titles that Nintendo was unwilling to tap, and Sony got to see all of their mistakes and successes and just copy that. Xbox would go on to tap another untouched market, PC and Western-oriented games and devs. Sony basically ended Nintendo's monopoly on all the Japanese third-party devs, something Sega was only partially successful at. It's a very good point.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's very good observations.
An underappreciated aspect of this whole story is that from the NES to the PS2, the real determiners of who, quote, won a given console war was Capcom, Konami, Squaresoft, and Enix. Every console they put the majority of their flagship titles on won the sales race. This might be closer to correlation than causation, but they made the savvy moves nonetheless. Can't wait for the next series. Will from Texas.
That's a good observation too. I think it's probably both correlation, but there's also some causation there too, because obviously you can't win if you ain't got no games. And so even if they sort of guessed correctly, right? The fact that those games were more heavily pushed on the consoles that won probably helped those consoles win too. So it's like probably they guessed and then, they happened to get it right, but partially why they got it right is because their titles were good games.
Yep. I fully agree with that. Great email, Will. Great email, Alexa. We are now going to end the podcast. We'll be back next week, hopefully finishing out this part 2. We might hold off on part 2 and do something different. I don't know.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll do whatever we want. Tyler, do you want to say bye to everyone before we go?
Goodbye, everyone.